Hey now, this is a VR to Heretic Housewife. Well, first I just want to tell you that I so enjoyed watching your video. It was eye-opening. One thing I haven't really had any experience with is the whole fat acceptance or body acceptance movement, except for like from way off on the sidelines. It has always seemed to me like it's really radical, and it seems to be radical. It seems to be kind of chip on the shoulder-ish and real exclusive, and like there's no room for people to accept their bodies if their bodies happen to be losing weight, or if their bodies are, stabilized at a, what might be considered not a fat weight, if you know what I mean. And like I said, I have a real problem with exclusive groups. That really bothers me. So having said that, I thought, well, your story of how you got here and how you were as a baby and as a child and a teen and so forth. It occurred to me that, I've never told my fat story. I've never really given it that whole treatment. So I'm going to do that right now, by golly, in a somewhat tongue-twisted way, because I'm really tired. But, gotta vlog. Okay, so, I was born 6 pounds 9 ounces. Perfect baby size for the late 1950s. And didn't take long before the pediatrician realized that I wasn't thriving. I wasn't digesting breast milk real well, and so back then they used, I wasn't digesting cow's milk either. I mean, or goat milk for that matter. I mean, after I went off the breast milk because I wasn't thriving, they tried a few other things. Well, they ended up with giving me this formula at 6 months old that was a meat-based formula. My mom said it smelled horrible, and she had to like mix it up every day. It didn't keep well, apparently. Anyhow, and I guess I just became like, I put on a bunch of weight really quickly. So probably the seeds of my body's weight set point was sown back there before I turned a year old. However, I started to digest regular food, and I would say I was probably 7 to 10% heavier than the other girls in my classes. When I take a look at myself as a kindergarten, first, second, and third grader, I see a little girl who was just slightly chubby, thick, if you know what I mean, but not, you wouldn't have said, oh look, there's the fat little girl in the class. No, I wasn't the fat little girl in the class, but I was kind of thick. So we get to the summer between 3rd and 4th grade, and my parents, to this day, I'm not sure why this happened. I kind of think my parents were having maybe having marital problems, and they needed to farm out a kid or two. I never really talked to my brother and sister about this. They were so young when this happened. I don't know that they would even remember. But I went to stay with my dad's mom and dad for the entire summer. I was there for, 3 months. I mean, pretty much from the time school ended to a couple of days before it started, I was gone. And they lived in Nevada, and I live in California. I was very homesick, and I would cry a lot, and I'm not going to say I was a difficult child, but I was kind of stupid and kind of surly, and I just really wasn't. I'm sure I was a big disappointment to my grandmother, because she was like, type A personality, total perfectionist. Everything was always clean and starched and done perfectly, and I was a big mess. So I frustrated my grandmother, and my grandmother was probably going through menopause at the time, and she was very brittle around me. She would either be yelling at me, or she'd be giving me candy because she felt bad because she had just yelled at me. So I spent that whole summer in like this emotional turmoil, getting yelled at, and then getting fed and petted, and getting, yelled at again. And it was it was weird. So anyway, what happened obviously is that I gained a bunch of weight over that summer. I went from being just kind of like a little bit on the thick side to being like 40 pounds, not 40 pounds, 40% overweight, I would guess. I mean, I was a freaking thick pork chop. I really was. And so it was so sad because I flew home and of course I had all new clothes. I had to have because nothing was fitting, right? And I remember back in the day, you didn't go through those tunnels when you got off a plane. The plane would pull up to the terminal and the steps would go down and you'd walk down the steps and your family would be behind a barrier on the tarmac outside. So I'm coming down the steps and I get off the steps and I'm so excited to see my mom and dad, and my parents were standing there with these horrified looks on their faces. I mean, they hadn't seen any pictures, you know, there was no way to, we didn't have Facebook, couldn't share this stuff. So yeah, I mean, it was like this immediate, I mean, immediately I could feel the cogs in my life grinding a little bit because I didn't pay all that much attention to it. I mean, I knew I was getting bigger, but I didn't connect getting bigger and gaining weight with something that was bad necessarily. So, 4th grade starts and I'm like, I mean, I was wearing my mother's bra in the 4th grade. I was super chub. So 4th grade happened. I started my period early, just like you. I was 9. And I'm beginning to think that had something to do with the fat metabolism and the hormones. But anyway, so then I get into the 5th grade. And man, my 5th grade teacher was a battle axe of an old bat. Her name was Mrs. Allard. And she was this short, Christmas tree shaped, gray, iron gray German woman, and she had an absolute heart of gold. And she decided to change my life for me. So she started taking us out on the playground, and she would make us run around the track, run and run and run and run and run. And she'd be waddling along beside us, yelling, cracking the whip, you know, you gotta get around, one more, one more. Well, over the course of maybe 6 or 8 weeks of doing that, well, I lost quite a bit of weight. I lost maybe half as much as I needed to lose. So I'd slimmed down. And you know, she told me later that she did that for me alone. Oh God, it's gonna make me cry. Anyway, God, that was just so sweet. And it worked. I mean, you know, 6th grade came and I started to shoot up. 7th grade came. By the time I was in the 9th grade, I had I have to compose myself here a second. Now all of my Vice 3 palette eyeshadow's gonna run. Oh, shoot. Okay, I'm back now. See, my mother doesn't make me cry, but talking about Mrs. Allard does. Oh, shit. Oh. Weird. I wonder where all that came from. Do I have battery still? Yeah. Okay, so so here comes 9th grade, and I got down. I grew, and my weight stabilized at about between 138 and 150, which doesn't sound like a stabilization, but I was usually right there in the middle, 142-ish, 145. That was kind of where I stayed for really all of high school and into well, like, I graduated at 17, and by 18 I had moved out and gone, moved to Southern California, where I met my first husband, and I was still maintaining that same weight. In fact, I actually knocked off a few more pounds. I started to stabilize somewhere between 135 and 140. So, yeah, I mean, just normal weight girl, size 11 or 13, because I had such huge boobs. You know, a lot of times waists in jeans were big, but the hips were tighter, and in tops, I would bust my buttons if it wasn't a size 13. So you know, I was very hourglass shaped. Anyhow, so I get married, and 3 months later I'm pregnant, and I gained 100 pounds. I went from 132 pounds to 232 pounds with my first kid. I was pre-eclamptic, you know, where you get that, like, it's like a pregnancy-related diabetes that's you only have when you're pregnant. I had that. I got real sick. I was in the hospital. I had a C-section. I came home. My C-section got infected. I had to go back into isolation in the hospital. I was separated from my baby for a while. And so finally all of that, I ended up, you know, recovering, and I went back to work. Well, actually I went back to school. I was in school for respiratory therapy at the time, and I weighed in at about 180 pounds or so. I remember the lowest I got was 177 pounds. I remember that. And I remember I just purchased a shirt that was kind of form-fitting, and I remember thinking, oh wow, I'm heading back towards my regular weight. But then I started to put it on inexplicably. I don't know, unless it was stress, unhappy marriage, I don't know. About a year later, about a year after my son was born, we moved from Southern California to Central California again, and I got pregnant with my second son. And I had already gained a lot of weight. Now, with my second son, I only gained 24 pounds. So I weighed in at about 200 when I got pregnant, and I weighed 224 pounds the day I delivered, and I zoomed right back down into the 190s. Like within 6 weeks, I weighed 190. So all of that time, I was, you know, on the low end of obese, high end of normal. I don't know what you would call that weight for 5'3" and 3/4. I mean, obviously I weighed too much, but it was, you know, it was maintainable. I was very athletic, still I was real muscular, and, you know, all that. So anyhow, when I was 6 months pregnant with my second son, that's when my husband decided to leave. So he up and left me with my 2-year-old. I was pregnant. I was working at the hospital as a respiratory therapist. Life was pretty fucking tough, let me tell you. So I tried to continue to work after my second son was born. That didn't work well, because I never saw my kids. I was working night shifts, and then I slept a little bit during the day, so you know, I didn't see them for like these huge chunks of every day, and they were with a babysitter, and it was costing a fortune, blah blah blah. So what I did is I quit, and I went to school, and that was sustainable. You know, I could go to junior college and get all my general ed stuff out of the way, and still have a lot of time with my children, which is great. So as all this is going on, my weight's edging up, to like, I was like the 230s or something. Then it would edge back down to 190. So I was doing that kind of rock and roll thing. Then I finished that school. I moved to Fresno, where my parents lived at the time, and I moved back in with them, and that's when my weight really started to climb. It just climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed and climbed until I got up to about 295 pounds or so. Well, actually, I bumped right off of 304 pounds, and then I stabilized right at 290. Well, 14 years ago, again unexplicably, I decided that I didn't want to be fat, or that fat anymore anyway. So I started to diet and exercise, the curves thing. I've talked to a few of you guys about going to curves and all that, and all the walking, and, you know, basically starvation. I mean, I wasn't even doing this in a healthy way. It's like I couldn't get the weight off fast enough, and I was dropping up to 6 pounds a week. I mean, I dropped weight so fast it was ridiculous, and so it slid off, and I got down to like 204 pounds, and And I was manless during all of this too. I didn't have a boyfriend at this time. I had broken up with the one before, and I had this little space of time where there wasn't any man in my life. Then I met a previous boyfriend at a party, and hooked up, and we were together for 4 years, and I put all the weight back on again. So my weight thing has a lot to do with my man thing. It's all tied up in there. So it all came back on, and it's been edging up a little bit every year until now. I got on the scale the other day, and I weighed just under 320, 319 and 0.6 or something. So I have the supportive husband. It's not like I'm embroiled in some awful relationship. And I'm just freaking trying to figure out why I'm not able to eat the stuff that's good for me, leave the other crap alone, have an occasional M&M, and just fucking get on with it. I don't know why. I do not know why I'm stuck. So that's my story. Now, the fat acceptance people. Here's my problem. Well, I think I told you my problem with them is that they really aren't about fat acceptance. What they want is to force fat acceptance on others. They want other people to accept them. It doesn't seem to be about them accepting themselves. It seems to be more about them insisting on others accepting them. And here's my problem with that. And this is where my lawyer comes in. Never, ever let them see you sweat. Never deal from a position of weakness. And to me, trying to force behavior and opinions on other people is a position of weakness. You set yourself up as a victim, no matter what you say about how you're not a victim. If you're trying to change somebody else's behavior or opinion about you, you're the guy on the defense. And that's a dangerous way to deal, as far as I'm concerned. Well, I'm also going to say this. I could be just dead fucking wrong. I don't know. Maybe this fat acceptance movement is like the greatest thing to come along since fucking sliced bread. I don't know. I'm just telling you what my impression is, my gut feeling about what it's really truly about. So, you know, go ahead and educate me. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm sure willing to change my mind. So, anyhow, thanks for that. Sorry I blubbered through all of that. I swear. Well, you guys got to see me cry. So anyway, I love y'all. I'll talk to you later. Bye.